Welcome back to Foot in Mouth. It's the final day of international football for the year, which is always good to say. But this one didn't disappoint. I'll give it its credit. There were some proper moments of magic that we're going to get into, but there were also some injuries that we're going to get into, namely ones that are going to affect Arsenal season going forward. It's a bad case of deja vu there, in my opinion. And then also, David Ornstein has snitched on Antoine Semenyo's release clause. So Bournemouth are definitely, I think, counting the days at this point. Someone's going to come in for him. So in this episode, we're going to speak about who is probably most likely to make the move and who the move would most suit. And there are obviously a lot of clubs that are in contention for his signature, and no surprises why. He's one of the best in the league. But before we get into anything, I do want to remind you that we are on the road to 200 subscribers. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I really would appreciate it. It would help the channel a whole lot. Stick around for the video. Leave it a like at the end if you do enjoy it, see how you feel. And yeah, please do subscribe to the channel. Road to 200 subscribers continues. But yeah, let's start things off with World Cup qualifiers. And I think the only place to start is Norway. They qualified for the World Cup. It's the first major tournament that Norway have qualified for in 26 years. People have been saying for years now that they do need to get into one. And they've finally done it. They finally got over the line, and they did it in style. They've won all of their group stage games, and by a margin. The goal difference is scary, and it's no surprise why Erling Haaland up top has been on a different level. They closed things out with a 4-1 win over Italy last night, which music to my ears, because I do not like Italy. But they came from 1-0 down. So when I saw Italy were 1-0 up, I expected this to be a reality check for Norway, but it wasn't the case. They came back to win 4-1, Erling Haaland scoring a brace on the night, and that took his total tally to 16 goals in the qualifying round. 16 goals for Erling Haaland in the qualifiers. 12 of those goals came in his last 4 games, which is insane. It's not just at club level. This guy, this year, I don't know what he has been doing in training in the off season, but whatever he's done, it is something fierce, bro. Because yeah, he's not stopping regardless of what stage he's on, and he has pretty much single-handedly fired Norway into their first World Cup in eons. So for Haaland now, that's 32 goals in 20 appearances this season in all competitions for club and country, which that's crazy. But when you look at just his country record right now, just for Norway, he's got 55 goals in 48 appearances. More goals than appearances is one of the toughest things to achieve in football. But this guy is making it look easy. And when you consider the fact that they've now qualified, he is going to be able to do this on the biggest of stages. Who knows what that's going to do to his ego? Who knows what that's going to do to how he performs on the pitch? This guy could go up another level, which doesn't seem very possible. But the numbers he's doing this season continue to scare me. He's not doing it alone, of course. Martin Odegaard is captaining things there, and he finished with the most assists in the qualifying round. He got 7 assists, which is, look, it's impressive, the fact that he did top that table, but the fact that he missed the last like 2-3 games for Norway through injury and still topped that table, I think that does go to show that Odegaard was absolutely getting back to his best before that injury, bro. I'm convinced of that. I had newfound belief in this Arsenal team because of how he was playing before he got injured, and I think Norway, while they did manage to get through without him, the fact that they can do this without him is what makes Norway such a strong contender for like the dark horse of the next World Cup. Again, it's even more than just Odegaard and Haaland. Like, I think you look throughout that team, there's a lot of talent there. There's Sheldon up, there's Oscar Bob, Antonio Nusa, Asgard, Leo Ostergaard. They've got Sander Berg. They have got so much potential. I think that they can genuinely upset the odds in the next World Cup. And when you have Erling Haaland up top, bro, especially in this type of form, there's no telling how far they could go. I genuinely would not be surprised if they defy any and all expectations. Probably going to be the strongest dark horse that we've seen in a long time, because we gave Turkey a lot of credit over the years. We've given Belgium a lot of credit over the years. Is it Norway's time? Based on what we've seen throughout the qualifying rounds, I think that's a very loud yes. Joining Norway is Portugal, because they finally qualified. They did take a very big blip with the loss to Ireland, but it did prove to be nothing more than just a speed bump, because they won comfortably last night, winning 9-1. 2 hat-tricks for Portugal on the night, one for João Neves, one for Bruno Fernandes. Armenia had no chance. And yeah, this was the return of Bruno Fernandes to the team after his suspension. What a way to bring yourself back into it with a hat-trick. But João Neves getting a hat-trick too. Must say, very impressive performance. I know that it is just Armenia, but you can only beat who's in front of you. And to beat them 9-1, yeah, it's going to make a lot of people happy. But the fact that it happened with Ronaldo out of the team, I think does bring some question marks. Because if this is what the team are capable of playing, if this is what they're capable of doing without him, maybe Ronaldo is going to be more of a from off the bench type of player, but you can't do that to Ronaldo, can you? Like, I don't think it's worth it. I think any team is better with Ronaldo in it, and I am going to be very biased there, but I think Portugal, the fact that they could pull off a 9-1 win with, I don't think that they win 9-1 if Ronaldo's on that pitch, to be honest. I think maybe they look a little bit more in control, but the fact that they won 9-1 because they were able to just play a much more free-flowing attacking game without having to work around Ronaldo's strengths and weaknesses, I think it is a sign of what is possible. So wouldn't be surprised if Ronaldo does get dropped a little bit more often going forward. But this is just one game. Shouldn't get too ahead of myself, but I think Portugal looked very good in it. And yeah, and they've qualified for the World Cup now. I mentioned the blip against Ireland for Portugal. It definitely wasn't a blip. It wasn't a fluke, sorry, for Ireland, because they followed up that Portugal win with a very dramatic win against Hungary to make it to the playoffs. And they've kind of killed Hungary in the process. And I'm not going to lie, as much as I love just the fairy tale side of things, right? Troy Parrot getting 2 goals against Portugal, then getting a hat-trick against Hungary, sealing that hat-trick with literally the last kick of the game. It doesn't get more magical than that, or much more magical than that in football. If the emotions were high, Troy Parrot himself said it was the first time he cried in years. This is why we love football, man. It's an underdog story. It's an underdog story of note. And yeah, they haven't won anything, but the fact that they qualified or made it to the playoffs the way that they have is just a really nice story. But it was made all the more sweeter when Szoboszlai decided to really have a go at the fans and the players while Hungary were in the lead. So for him to get his just dues and see the tearful scenes after the game, it was very poetic in that regard alone. But yeah, hats off to Ireland, bro. I think defying everybody's expectations in these last 5 days. Troy Parrott scoring 5 goals in the last 2 games. Yeah, it's the stuff that dreams are made of, man. And I do hope that Ireland can continue defying expectations and then make it through the playoffs. But yeah, it remains to be seen at this moment. Either way, massive week for them. The Netherlands have qualified. They did manage to get through this last game against Lithuania 4-0. And all 4 goal scorers for Holland were literally Premier League players, which is the first time that's ever happened. Quite bizarre to see on the score sheet. You had Javi Simmons, you had Reinders, and then you had Gakpo and Marlon rounding it off. So yeah, 4 goals scored, 4 Premier League goal scorers, and Holland are through to the 2026 World Cup. I still think they looked the finished product, and there was an injury scare in this game for Arsenal. Julian Timber went down injured, but he did manage to see out 60 odd minutes of the game after that injury scare. So it looks like everything's okay there. But yeah, Holland are through. Germany qualify after beating Slovakia 6-0. And in this game, Valtemade scored again, which means that it's now 3 goals for him in this week for Germany. He's been in very good form, I think, since he signed for Newcastle. I think it's very fair to say. I think at the very least, he's been in good form since he signed. I think there's only like one or two games where he hasn't had a goal contribution. But yeah, the fact that he's leading the line at Germany this well, you know, Germany are going to get better once Kai Havertz comes back into the team as well Arsenal. But yeah, it's a good week for Germany. 6 goals for them. And Croatia also qualified. They needed to qualify. This is another club where you kind of feel that the golden generation of that nation is kind of past them football-wise. But I feel like they always do have a result in them. So they're going to be honest to watch in the tournament. They're also going to probably be joined by Belgium. Belgium, in typical Belgium fashion, making things very difficult for themselves. And they haven't exactly sealed the deal just yet. But you kind of have to assume, which I guess is a worry to do when it comes to Belgium, that they are going to get over the line. But yeah, that does it for the major European countries that have now qualified. One big name that is not going to be joining in the World Cup festivities from Africa is Nigeria, because somehow they lost to DR Congo on penalties. They are in the mud, and it has seemed to embarrass quite a few people. A lot of chat online, at least in the football Twitter, was in a meltdown after Nigeria failed to qualify. You look at the countries from Africa that have qualified. You know, South Africa made it. It's one way. It looks like everybody's eating, but there's a lot of countries that have gotten over the line here. So you would have expected Nigeria to follow suit. Unfortunately, they didn't. Look, it didn't help that Osimhen did come off injured for them. So there's every chance that the second half goes a bit differently if he does play. But either way, man, yeah, this is the second World Cup in a row that they have not qualified for. It's not a good look. I didn't realize it had been that long since Nigeria qualified. But to be honest, I'm just happy South Africa are there. That is who I'm going to be backing at the 2026 World Cup. But yeah, Nigeria not making it, that is pretty big. And I think it is bragging rights for South Africa in a big, big way. Right, on to Arsenal injury worries. Ricardo Calafiori also had injury scare with Italy. He came back early, but it wasn't due to an injury. It was apparently just out of precaution, saying that he was just suffering from overload, basically. No surprise there. There's a lot of football being played. That's why squad depth is so important. And that squad depth is going to be needed because one proper injury that Arsenal have to deal with now is that of Gabriel. And I am especially annoyed by this injury because it happened in a friendly for Brazil. There was no real need for him to play, but I do understand that he would want to play for Brazil. They were playing at the Emirates as well, so he wasn't exactly traveling anywhere. Luckily, he could just go straight into the medical room. But yeah, it is a massive blow for Arsenal. Easily the best defender in the league so far this season. I think it's fair to say that. So important to Arsenal, both in the defensive side of things and in the offensive side of things, because he's a threat in both boxes. He is needed. And the next 3 games that Arsenal have in particular is where he will be needed, because we're playing Spurs this weekend. Then we've got Bayern Munich in the Champions League. Then we've got Chelsea. So 3 huge games. The North London derby alone, this is a fixture where he himself has gotten like 3 man of the match awards from. So he knows this game. He enjoys playing in this game. And we are going to need him for it. But it looks like he is out. I haven't seen an exact timeline of how long he'll be out, but I've seen people saying between 4 weeks and 6 weeks. Either way, Arsenal have to manage. We are going to have to manage. We managed to work around Saliba's injury a little bit better, but I think that the fixtures he wasn't here for were a lot more forgiving than the ones Gabriel won't be here for. But again, coming back to the depth, I think this is where Arsenal are lucky, because we've seen Mosquera can play at left centre-back as well. He's obviously more suited to right centre-back, but the fact that he can play at left centre-back is a big help. But that being said, I think that this is a massive opportunity for Nketiah. And understandably so, when Gabriel's injury was announced, the compilations started coming out in full swing, all the Nketiah compilations. And I will say, maybe it was just pure copium, but I'm convinced that we're going to be okay. Just in the sense of, Nketiah is a very big goal-scoring threat. I don't think enough people have given him credit for it. We obviously haven't seen enough of him in an Arsenal kit to be exactly sure that it's going to translate in the Premier League. But from what I've seen through compilations, I think that there's a lot of potential here for possibly another Kiwior situation. Kiwior came in to fill a gap through injuries, and he ended up looking way better than we expected. Now you see a similar situation with Nketiah, a similar opportunity for him, but this is backed by Arsenal spending big money on him, unlike they did with Kiwior. They spent a decent amount of money, but not Nketiah money. So if Arsenal had this much confidence in him, and now we are going to see him get a solid run of games, I think it's a very big opportunity that Nketiah can kind of cement himself as a regular starter in this Arsenal team, which I think is very tough to do when you consider how good the defense is. Not even Mosquera can kind of lock that down for himself, if you're being honest. So I am disappointed that Gabriel's injured, but I am also a little bit excited to see what this brings out of the team and what this means for Nketiah. Not even just Nketiah. This could mean more minutes for Lewis Skelly, because Calafiori can also play centre-back. So this could be, there could be a lot of new ways for Arteta to use his defense. The one thing I will say is I think it's bye-bye Chelsea record. I think if Gabriel misses about 4 or 5 games for us, I think in those 4 or 5 games, we lose that defensive record that Chelsea set. But not really interested in that at the moment. Or right now, it's like kind of damage control. We still need to win these games with or without Gabriel. So what's the best way to do that? I think the most straightforward way is to throw Nketiah in there. That's the most straightforward way. But like I said, there's options because of our squad depth. I think that it is a worry. We're going to lack the goals, and we haven't exactly been flush with goals. So Gabriel's goals from set pieces were a big help. And this is going to be a test for Arsenal. It's going to be a really big test for them. But if we can come out of these next 3 games fairly unscathed, then I think that we absolutely prove our title credentials. It's moments like this that make or break champions. And we shouldn't let the injury of a centre-back absolutely dictate whether or not we win. Look, what is a downside injury-wise is also that apparently Victor Gyökeres is a big doubt for this weekend. So fortunately, some players are returning back from injury. I don't think enough are going to be back in time for this run of the next 3 games. But yeah, I think just sticking with the defense, that's probably the one place that Arsenal are okay injury-wise. Ben White can also play centre-back if need be. I'm pretty sure he'd be a decent option to cover, whether it's left centre-back or right centre-back. We've seen him play right centre-back before with Gabriel, before Saliba was integrated into the team. But yeah, we got options. But yeah, for me, I think that the best plan of action right now, go with Nketiah. He's just played for his country in the international break, and he captained them as well. So he's got the leadership qualities that we're also going to miss with Gabriel being out injured. So if he can cover on both ends, both performance-wise on the pitch and also leadership-wise, that should really help us stay afloat and get through these next few games. I mean, it's going to be a lot of high pressure football that he's playing. I feel like it is kind of throwing him into the deep end because he's only just got back from an injury that stopped his process of really integrating into the Arsenal team. But trial by fire works well for most, and based on his style of play, I think that he is going to kind of thrive in it, or maybe that's just the copium in me. But yeah, I think Nketiah is the best option. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you go Calafiori just to give Miles Lewis-Kelly more minutes? Because you can bet that Lewis-Kelly is probably very antsy to get on this pitch again. And he'll probably feature in the Bayern game. It's a home game for us. The fact that he played against Atletico Madrid, I think just only warrants, it only improves that he will be trusted to start. And with this Gabriel injury, I think it almost forces Arteta's hand. So yeah, let me know what you think. What's the best plan of action for Arteta? Do you go Nketiah, or do you just stick it out with Calafiori and Mosquera even? Do you stick it out with Mosquera? Let me know in the comments. And the last thing I want to speak about today, Antoine Semenyo. It was reported before that he had a release clause, but there wasn't any talk about what that actual number was until David Ornstein spilled the beans. And yeah, it's a £65 million release clause. It's not a little money. It's a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of a bargain. I think, when you look at the transfer market, I think it's kind of a bargain for someone like Antoine Semenyo. But yeah, it got me thinking, a lot of clubs are after him. The big names that have been mentioned from the Premier League are Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Arsenal. Man United probably in there as well. But obviously, he's going to have his pick. And if no one activates it in this January transfer window, then the release clause is of a gain from the summer, but it's going to be even less than 65 mil. So I guess it's a good opportunity. You could wait and just try and pick him up for even less, but you'll probably have even more competition at that point if you do wait. And I won't lie, the right of the bat, this transfer has Arsenal written all over it, in my opinion. I think I've been saying we are one left winger away from winning the league. I do think it's probably harsh on Leandro Trossard, who's been in really good form. But I kind of see Semenyo as something of a longer-term replacement for Trossard as well. I don't think Trossard sticks it out past the season with Arsenal. So we do need to start thinking longer-term in any case. I think Eberechi Eze also is going to play that side a lot. So that's my main concern in the sense of minutes. We obviously also have Madueke. We have Bukayo Saka who can come on the left. So I think it's very easy to dismiss Arsenal's need for him. But when you look at how we play, and even Martinelli has found really good form at the moment, I have to give him props there too. You look at how we play and you kind of think to yourself, Saka on the right, Semenyo on the left, that's trouble, bro. And maybe I'm just being greedy at this point, because I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to lose any sleep if Arsenal don't sign him. I just think that he's a really good player, one of the best in the league. He's an Arsenal fan. And I think that this could be another massive opportunity for Arsenal to kind of get on top of. But yeah, I think it's a lot of players to manage. It's a lot of players to keep happy. So we still got Max Dowman in the ranks as well. It's not the easiest position to slot into. But I do think that if you ask me right now, who would I prefer on left wing at Arsenal between Leandro Trossard, Gabriel Martinelli, or Antoine Semenyo, or Eberechi Eze even, I'm going with Semenyo, I can't lie. So yeah, I think that Arsenal, they can gain a lot from going forward with this transfer. But that being said, Spurs probably need him a lot more, if we're being honest. And not just Spurs, Liverpool too. Liverpool only really have Cody Gakpo to rely on their left wing, who's really dependable. And Semenyo at Liverpool, I think, also is a good fit. So he could be tempted to go there. But Liverpool just spent so much money. I'm not convinced they've got another 65 mil just sitting around for a left winger in January. I could be wrong, obviously. I don't know the ins and outs of how Liverpool are being run. But they've spent a lot of money. And I don't expect that they're going to be very keen to spend any more until what they've currently spent starts to bring some type of reward back in for it, because that team is really struggling at the moment. But again, depth-wise, they could use a Semenyo. Everybody could use a Semenyo, if you're being honest. Not Chelsea. Chelsea, I think that's the one name that I think may just be thrown in there just for hype, because, dude, they've just got Garnacho, they got Gittins, they are flush with wingers. Same like Arsenal, to be fair. They're flush with wingers. I just think that Chelsea have different objectives this season to Arsenal, so they're not in as much pressure to really act on a deal like this, in my opinion. Man United is always an option. That would be a big option for Semenyo. He would be a walk into the starting 11, pick his position even. But yeah, I don't know if I think United also are going to work with what they have at the moment. They need to still get the best out of some of these new signings, namely Šeško, namely Cunha. But yeah, I think that Semenyo is going to be an interesting option for them. At 65 mil, he's gettable for a lot of clubs, has to be said. But yeah, I'm really hoping that he comes to Arsenal. I think Semenyo to Arsenal means Arsenal win the league, hands down. I think that absolutely takes any question marks away from the club. And Arsenal are supposedly going to back Arteta in January to lock it down. So a move for Semenyo is one of those moves that makes that happen, in my opinion. But let me know what you think. What's the best move for Semenyo? Which club should be moving the hardest for him? Because yeah, he makes any club better. Thank you as always for watching this video. Do give it a like if you enjoyed it. And again, road to 200 subscribers. We are en route. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. Please subscribe to the channel so you can help me get there. I really would appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one.